section will win an election to rule this country without the support of the North. Shettima, the national president of the Arewa Youth Consultative Forum, Alhaji Shettima, has said that nobody from any section of Nigeria can win a presidential election in the country without the support of the North. He said that President Bola Tinubu picked a Muslim as a vice president because he wanted to get the support of the North. Shettima said this during an interview with Saturday Vanguard. During the interview, Shettima was reminded that some people in the North were not in support of the Senate president coming from the South. And now that the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio, is the Senate president, Shettima was asked if the North is comfortable with the current leadership arrangement in the National Assembly. In his response to that, Shettima said that having a Muslim as the Senate president would not have been in the interest of Nigeria. He said that the country needs to be stable so that agitation can reduce, and in that way, the government will be able to concentrate on delivering the dividends of democracy to the people. In his words, he says, "As it is today, we have to be cautious of issues that will further divide the nation. The last government succeeded in creating more division. Tinubu is aware and mindful of that. His calculation was to have a Muslim as vice president to get the North on his side, which paid off for him. No section will win an election to rule this country without the support of the North. So in that wise, you can't allow another Muslim to take the position of the Senate president." But that's the thing. It's like, do they think they're doing Nigerians a favor? Oh, so if the Senate president then happens to be from another tribe, listen, and I'm not saying the Senate president is not an important role, but if you really wanted to prove unity, you wanted to prove that you were open-minded, that, you actually heeded to the whole zoning and regional presidency, and you showed that you were being fair, that was the time. It's like when it's time for you to perform, you don't. And at the time that it's not crucial or needed, it wouldn't have the same effect. If you then put someone, let's say, put an Igbo person as Senate president, it wouldn't do the effect it's meant to do. If you're trying to promote unity, trying to promote fairness, now is not the time. Your time has passed. And unfortunately, you've passed it. So do you think that you're doing Nigerians a favor? That's not how it works, mate. It doesn't work. And so with arguments and, especially with the APC, bringing the Muslim ticket, a vice president from the North, I don't think the North lacks representation. If you really wanted to unite people based on the fact of, your people from the North are represented, I don't think the North can ever complain because they are already represented. It is for those who are underrepresented that you are meant to sell to. So it's like you're trying to work and prove yourself when it's not needed. You see, when it's time for you to do something, when the expectations are high, when it's time for you to perform and you don't, you can't undo it when the energy is low. You're going to have to wait for when the opportunity arises, and you just have to be ready. No excuses. Very true, though better. When you're referring to the North, please kindly mention the state you're referring to, because Plateau, Benue, Taraba, Abuja, Kogi, and many more are not part of your Muntula Machiavellianism. Wow. If anyone can go into detail, please go through. What did the selection... Okay, this doesn't make sense. English. Stop calling it a northern support and call it by its true democratic choice of the Muslim vote, because it was because the Christians wanted to teach Muslims a lesson. Daring to present a Muslim put us to shame. The Christians put all their eggs in one basket. The social media president, the obedient. At the end of the day, we can't forget that with how Nigeria is and the population, especially when you compare the north and the south of Nigeria, more than just the geographical divide exists, the religious divide. And it just happens. It's the region, it's the geographical area. You will just more likely find more Christians in the South than in the North. And it's crazy because I feel like if you look statistically, you'd find that there are actually more Northern and Muslims integrated into the South than Christians integrated into the North. It's all about the numbers. Nigeria will restructure along geopolitical zones and rotate the presidency around the same zones to avoid monopoly of any zone. You know what I think? I think we should all just forget about this regional, zonal presidency. I think it's one of the core reasons as to why we are held back so much and we hinder our own progress. When you go to places in the world, I mean, things are so simplified by the fact that in a lot of other countries, yes, you can say diversity, brings culture, brings a lot of benefits, but it still has to be controlled. You go to a lot of countries in the world, it's usually one language, right? It's usually, if it's different accents in different areas, that's the most diversity you would get. But when the language barrier exists, or for example, if you look at, East Africa, Swahili is basically the language that is known amongst 4 countries in the East. You have Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya. These countries speak Swahili, but it doesn't mean they don't have their actual tribal languages. But if you look at how Swahili is also recognized, people learn Swahili like you are learning French or you're learning Chinese. It is a language that has been given respect, that business talks, integration talks are discussed in that language, Swahili. So I think we just need to find how we can be united, because in this day and time, if we are still arguing regional presidency, we are not represented, we are this, we just need to find ways to really look at ourselves as one. Because if we try to divide and separate, I'm this, I'm that, it's a problem. And that whole cliquey belongingness and that divide, it's like we love being divided, even with the whole polarization, this election. Who are you supporting? Are you pacified? Are you obedient? Are you articulate? It's like we love to belong. And you can see that it's good for a short while for the purpose of trying to do, but when it's taken so personally, and you can see how it runs even in our society and our cultures, who's, especially with religion, people associate with this, I mean, come on, even Davido and Wizkid is enough to break up an argument and divide people in a room. You know what I mean? So when it comes to being united, that's something we really need to work on, because all these conversations of who should be Senate president, or show that you're not about Muslim ticket only, it's too late, and it's very behind. Put what you think in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.